Hello. We are live again, second time today. But I'm in the mood to be productive and to get on with this today. So I've reset the computer and I believe that has resolved the issue with messages not appearing on the screen, which was bugging me earlier. So that's good. I seem to have abandoned my my fast food themed silly comments, but never mind. Yes, right, let me just... I was kind of rushing around a bit and I forgot to set that up. Right, so what am I going to do today? Well, I'm just going to crack on. So earlier on, I signed off 3 chapters. I'm going to do at least one now, depending on how... I'm quite hungry and I haven't really eaten much today, so I might only do the 1 chapter now. On the other hand, I might get really into it and do another, but whatever happens, I should sign off a 4th chapter today, which is great news, because that only leaves me another 5 to do over 3 days, which means I may even start working on chapter 31 before I go back to work, which puts me perilously close to the halfway point in the book. In fact, there are 43 chapters and a prologue, so 44 chapter units in all. And if I get to chapter 21, I'll have edited 21 chapters and a prologue, so it will literally be the halfway point. And that will be really cool. Right, so, messages are appearing, so I'm just going to crack on with this, I think. Let me just open up the chapter, which is deliberately named after a chapter in The Hobbit. That's alluded to within the story as well. So, chapter 15, An Unexpected Party. The 30th of April, which was the day that the appointments had been arranged at both Westminster and Holyrood, fell on a Tuesday. 6 days before that, on a Wednesday, the clothing that Ronnie and Mackenzie had been measured for was delivered to Forest Lodge. It was accompanied by a seamstress who made them try on the items in the drawing room, ready to make any minor adjustments. Ronnie had wanted a suit with trousers and it looked very smart, but they had also made her a skirt, and as much as it annoyed her to admit it, the skirt looked better. Mackenzie liked his kilt, although he went bright red when Ronnie asked what he intended to wear beneath it. Each day the pair practised their presentations until they were word perfect. The role-play dry runs including... Dry runs should probably be hyphenated. Let me just... The role-play dry runs included many practice scenarios as to how their information might be received. Lord Farnborough often appeared for a couple of days, then he would disappear for a while before returning. His initial observations of Ronnie and Mackenzie, made on the 2nd day of his first visit, were that he was completely happy with Ronnie, that Mackenzie was sound on his facts but needed to work on his confidence. As a result, the majority of the practice runs were spent preparing him for every potential question and every conceivable outcome. Farnborough arrived again that Wednesday once the new clothing had been put away in the wardrobes, obviously. Nobody put away in the toilet. Let me just let's just lose the in the wardrobes line. Just put away. He demanded that they all meet immediately in Oakley's study. Ursula, Marianne, Ronnie and Mackenzie all grudgingly stopped whatever they had been doing and gathered in the large room. "Sit down," said Farnborough. "This won't take long." All but Oakley sat on the sofas at the edge of the room, whilst he remained standing by the door. "I just wanted to update you all. Yesterday I introduced Derek Cockerell Wright to your world. He knows about Idrisil and the fact that the message that you will be delivering is on her behalf." Oh, that's interesting. I've just had a message to say, copyright issues found on Empress the Tree's second draft, which is the video I've just uploaded. They're recorded in a hotel lobby. I bet you it's because they had music playing in the background. Interesting. Maybe I should mute the audio because I don't talk to the camera at all. I shall consider that. Anyway, sorry. Just wanted to update you all. Yesterday I introduced Derek Cockerell Wright to your world. He knows about Idrisil and the fact that the message that you will be delivering is on her behalf. And he believed you? Asked Ronnie suspiciously. I gave him a practical demonstration, said Farnborough. We closed off the park next to the Palace of Westminster, and Idrisil spoke to him. One sentence, it took 8 hours. If you feel intimidated by him on Tuesday, Veronica, I want you to imagine walking from the tree to an army control post stinking of his own piss. Farnborough thought this would amuse her, but her face remained stoic. He continued. I've downgraded that because my original version said army troll with his pants full of shit was the original, but I kind of toned it down a little bit. Fiona McRae had a similar experience up in Edinburgh, courtesy of Mr. Carruthers. She carried herself with much more dignity. They are both aware that the other has been briefed. The other thing I wanted to tell you is that I'm extremely happy with the progress both of you have made since I was last here. Our message needs to be delivered confidently, and I have no concerns at all. We have just under a week to dot the I's and cross the T's. Mr. Oakley, tonight we are going to celebrate your achievements. Lord Farnborough wants us all to let our hair down. Oakley said the final 4 words with a sneer. Tomorrow we can recover, then back to preparations on Friday. And what does letting our hair down entail, precisely? Asked Ronnie. Eating and drinking in large quantities, said Farnborough. I don't drink, said Ronnie. You do tonight, said Oakley. It's compulsory. And who is preparing all of this food? Asked Marianne, already sure they knew the answer. I will ask you to lay it out, yes, but I have ordered in from caterer. I want you to enjoy it as much as the others. You are, I'm told, integral part of all of this, my dear fellow. Marianne rolled their eyes. Enjoy your unexpected party, continued Farnborough, grinning at the offence he had deliberately just caused. As long as 13 dwarves and a wizard don't turn up, muttered Mackenzie. What was that? asked Farnborough. Nothing, said Mackenzie. Nothing, said Mackenzie. Hobbit joke. Ronnie hugged him. That's exactly what my friend Danny would have said. It was not what either Ronnie or Mackenzie would have called a party. When the catering arrived, there was enough food for 10 times as many people as there were in the house. Marianne duly laid it all out on the kitchen table with an array of drinks that had to be carried up from the cellar, which Mackenzie helped them to do. Oakley refused alcohol on the grounds that someone had to be sober in the event of an emergency. Ursula insisted on just having tea and cake, but Farnborough seemed to have a cast-iron stomach, and none of the alcohol he drank seemed to touch him. Ronnie did not want to drink. When Farnborough got too insistent, Ronnie, Mackenzie and Marianne took a selection of food, a bottle of whisky and some mixers up the 2 flights of stairs to Mackenzie's suite. They flopped down on his sofa. Mackenzie had a high-spec sound system in his room, and the 3 of them ate, drank, and listened to music, enjoying it much more than they would have done downstairs with Farnborough's overbearing presence. Ronnie grabbed the bottle of whisky. Are you going to have some? Asked Marianne. Ronnie nodded and poured a double into a glass. She raised it to the others. To us. The others raised their glasses. Repetition of the others. I'm just going to change that to they. To us, replied Marianne and Mackenzie. They were rather startled when Ronnie downed hers in one gulp, pulling a face as though she immediately regretted it. However, she reached for the bottle and poured another, this time adding some ginger ale. Mackenzie filled a glass each for himself and Marianne, one with ginger, one without, and handed the fuller glass to Marianne. So, said Ronnie, we've never chatted about you, Marianne. What's your story? Marianne held the glass in their lap and smiled. What do you want to know? Well, replied Marianne, I've made a lot of assumptions about you, but never had the courage to ask you to find out if I'm right. The whisky has gone straight to my head, by the way, so I'm probably more direct than usual. Tell me about you. More direct, whispered Mackenzie with a grin. Ronnie glared at him with mocking indignation. Well, said Marianne, I was born male 28 years ago. I never felt like a boy, though, even when I was little. They blushed and giggled. Mackenzie smiled. I know you don't identify with a gender, and I hope I'm not insulting you, but I do see you as more female than male. More female than male. There's a word in there that doesn't need to be there. Well, as I was growing up, that's exactly how I felt. I played with girls' toys, much to my parents' disgust. When I went to school, they made me dress in shorts and shirts, and even when I was 5, I hated. When I was a teenager, I decided I was a girl and started to dress as such. A few people accepted it, but a lot more tried to bully me. As I got older, the whole gender thing annoyed me. I was born as a male, additionally identified as female, which was when I chose my name, but as I got older I realised that I did not fall firmly into one category or the other. When someone used the term non-binary in front of me the first time, it was a light bulb moment. Everything just fell into place and made sense. When I was a little boy, I dreamed of being a little girl. Now I'm just happy not being put into a box. Ronnie had taken a few more sips of her whisky and ginger. Are you still... She did not know how to ask the question delicately. Anatomically male, yes. When I was in my teens, I thought I wanted to transition, but I'm so glad I didn't rush into anything, as I'm completely comfortable with me now. I like who I am. Everyone seems fine with it. Oakley sometimes genders me, but says she, which out of the two I would prefer, and although Ursula doesn't understand the concept, she's never nasty. I've only met Carruthers once and he seemed very respectful. Only Lord Farnborough gets it wrong, and that's deliberate. They paused, looking slightly embarrassed. I hope you don't mind me asking, but... They smiled sheepishly. How do you see me? Ronnie looked serious. I have to think about your pronouns, but if I made a mistake, I'd probably slip into she and her. Marianne gently held Ronnie from the side. Well, if you do have to think about it, you're doing really well. I've not heard you saying it wrong yet. They had some more whiskey, then turned. They had some more whiskey, sipped some more of the whiskey. I'm going to change that. They sipped some more of their whiskey and ginger. Then turned to Mackenzie. How about you? Mackenzie looked as though he was thinking intensely, but when he opened his mouth his confidence vanished and he shut it again, shaking his head. Marianne looked sympathetic. Do you remember the first thing you said to me? They asked. Mackenzie nodded and looked down with embarrassment. I said, what the fuck is that? But I meant your Yakunda glow, not anything else. I know, said Marianne, but when you're used to being seen as different, the first thing you assume is that it's because of the whole gender thing. Knowing your background, I was honestly a bit nervous about meeting you, but you were the opposite of what I expected. I doubt you'd even heard the term non-binary before we met, but you've just accepted me for who and what I am. And you seem to trust me. I do, said Mackenzie. More than trust you. He leaned in conspiratorially. I like you. He frowned, thinking intensely. Because you're no twat. You're a decent, kind person. He looked extremely embarrassed, heightened when Marianne leaned forward to kiss his cheek. He closed his eyes because he did not know where to look, then opened them again and grabbed her hand, smiled and squeezed it, letting go again almost immediately. Marianne laughed. You've not answered my original question. How do you see me? I see you as you. Ronnie had almost finished her second whiskey. Whilst not enjoying the alcohol, she was liking the company. Can I ask... Have you? She could not finish the sentence and squealed with embarrassment, which set Marianne off into a fit of giggles too. Mackenzie looked perplexed until he realised what Ronnie had been attempting to ask. His eyes widened and he looked at Marianne. Knowing they were anticipating an answer, they slowly refilled their glass with whiskey and ginger. Well? Asked Ronnie impatiently. Of course I have, replied Marianne. I don't know how to ask the next bit. Ronnie, giggling again, throwing her hair back. Are you... She paused and laughed again. I don't know how to ask without referring to gender. Not ginger. I don't know how to ask without referring to gender. Am I a boy or a girl in bed? Yes, I've been both. It just depends on the person and the situation. What about you? I'm a girl, said Ronnie too loudly. No, smiled Marianne. Have you, Ronnie looked wistful. It was just before I had my first interface with Idrisil. I'd put on loads of weight and he just didn't see it. He said I was as attracted to him as I always had been. And it wasn't just a nice thing to say. He meant it. God, I miss him. Who? Danny. He was my best friend. He's also Yakunda. Ronnie turned to Mackenzie. The weight gain thing. Did that bother you? I hated it, confessed Mackenzie. I didn't understand what was happening. I assumed I'd be like it forever. Did it damage your confidence with girls? Asked Marianne. I never had confidence with girls, confessed Mackenzie. When I was 17, I spent 6 or 7 months living rough. I still see myself as unwashed, as unattractive. You're not that, smiled Ronnie. Marianne raised her eyebrows, smiled and nodded. True, I can't believe you weren't fighting off the wee Highland lasses. Mackenzie looked down and gulped down looked away, not down, because there's a repetition of down. Let me just... I'm having to hardly change any of this. This is great. Marianne raised their eyebrows, smiled and nodded. True, I can't believe you weren't fighting off the wee Highland lasses. Mackenzie looked down and gulped down and looked away and gulped down his scotch. I'm a virgin. Marianne and Ronnie just looked at each other. Really? Well, Mackenzie looked hugely embarrassed. He strongly considered saying nothing, of changing the subject, but it was the right time, and these two were the right people. He took a deep breath. You remember I said to you I told Carruthers something? It must have been quite something. He rushed off and we haven't seen him since, said Ronnie. Aye, it is. Mackenzie filled his whiskey glass again and downed the shot in one gulp. My stepmother was a drug addict, and sometimes she used to have sex with a dealer if she couldn't afford to pay him, and sometimes the dealer would bring a friend. Marianne suddenly realised what Mackenzie was about to say. They grabbed his hand, tears forming in their eyes. Only say it if you want to. Only say it if you want to, sweetheart, they whispered. The friend was a pervert. The friend was a pervert. He used to pay Mum's drug dealer for access to me. Mackenzie slumped back in his seat, and Marianne squeezed his hand. Ronnie closed her eyes, her head suddenly very clear. Bloody hell. I'm so sorry. How old were you? Young. The jovial atmosphere had been completely wiped out by Mackenzie's horrendous revelation. Marianne stared at him openly, crying now, the hand squeezing his. Mackenzie could take it no more and leapt up through the double doors and into the stairwell. Marianne and Ronnie ran after him, just in time to see the bedroom door straight ahead slam shut. I had no idea, breathed Ronnie. I had an inkling, said Marianne, fighting back tears. He said something when Carruthers came and went so quickly, but only enough for me to guess. I wasn't far from the mark, though. No wonder Carruthers didn't stick around when Mackenzie told him that. Why wouldn't he? Because it's his fault, snapped Marianne. He was supposed to be aware at all times of what was going on with Mackenzie. Our associates have people everywhere monitoring ambassadors, police, social workers. Hang on, P. Just need to take out the capital P in police. Police, social workers, everything we need to ensure your well-being, and a coordinator to watch you. Had your adoptive parents done a bad job, you would have been moved. There will be people you knew, other than Ursula, who's your coordinator, that would have been reporting your well-being back to her. I've already been told about one of my teachers. I'm not sure I want to know anymore. It's a bit creepy. I see why you would think that. But Carruthers fudged it. When Mr. Oakley was employed to oversee the final stages, he discovered that Mackenzie was living rough on the streets. He sorted that out straight away, but then what else could he do? He was 18 by then, the damage was done. Ronnie shook her head. He's so focused on what we're doing. He's been great the last few weeks, even more so knowing all of that. Marianne knocked on the door. Mackenzie, can we come in? I'm going to say they asked softly, so they're not going to be yelling. There was no reply. Mackenzie? Ronnie shook her head. He won't answer. Just go in. Marianne nodded and opened the door slowly. The room had an unusual layout. There were no windows, but there was a large skylight above the bed. Mackenzie was in the right-hand corner of the room on the floor, curled up in a tight ball. Sitting curled up in a tight ball. I'm just going to add the sitting. Sitting curled up in a tight ball, rocking slowly. Marianne took a step forward, then faltered. They looked back at Ronnie. You should go to him, they said. Me? Whispered Ronnie. It's quite obvious he likes and trusts you. And I like him. Marianne paused. I mean, I really like him, but with what he's just told us, perhaps I'm not the best person? Rubbish. If he needed help, you'd still be the one he'd turn to. Marianne thought about it for a moment. You're right. He already has. Psyching themselves up, Marianne stepped across the large space past the bed and crouched down. They rested their hand gently on his shoulder. Mackenzie, it's Marianne. You're safe here. We will never let anyone hurt you again. The touch caused shudders, but Marianne continued to stroke his shoulder. I understand so much more about you now. You're among friends here. Real friends. Keeping his eyes to the floor, Mackenzie whimpered, I don't have any friends. I never have. I'm too scared to get close to anyone because I know they'll eventually let me down. Ronnie crossed over to Mackenzie as well, and together they helped him to sit up. Marianne wiped the tears from his cheek. You do have friends. Me and Ronnie are your friends. We may have been forced together, but the bond between us is real. The two sat on either side of him. Mackenzie turned and looked to Marianne. Why are you crying? Marianne shook their head, worried that what they would say might make things worse. Because I can't bear the thought of what you went through and what it's done to you. Mackenzie looked to his other side and saw that Ronnie also had red eyes. You're soft, he said quietly. Ronnie closed her eyes and a tear dripped down her face. The three sat together in a tight embrace until Mackenzie eventually stood up. I guess the party's over, he said. Marianne also stood. We're not leaving you alone, they said softly. What if that's what I want? Marianne smiled. Tough. There was a moment of awkward silence, which Mackenzie was the first to break. What movie are we up to? He asked after what seemed like an age. We just watched Civil War, said Ronnie. Then it's Doctor Strange next, said Mackenzie. I'll go and see if the cinema is empty, said Marianne. Mackenzie shook his head. No, just us. Can we watch it up here? That's what you want? Aye. Okay, this is Marianne. Can I get any more drinks and snacks? Ronnie and Mackenzie gave them a list, and Marianne shot downstairs to collect them. Farnborough was down in the kitchen, boring the living daylights out of Ursula, and Oakley was nowhere to be seen. Marianne grabbed the things they'd been asked for, then headed back up the stairs. Mackenzie was waiting for them on the landing. Have you remembered the skips? He asked, as he spotted them amongst the items they had in their arms. Ah, you have. Cool. He paused as if wanting to say something, but was not sure whether he should or not. In the end, he took some of the food from their hands. I heard what you said to Ronnie, he said quietly. What? I like him. I mean, I really like him. I heard that. Marianne went red. So? I really like you too. I just wouldn't have coped without you. He looked slightly ashamed at having said it. I hope all of this lasts, he said, waving gently round him. Why wouldn't it? Mackenzie paused. Because it's all too good to be true. In my experience, if it seems too good to be true, there's a reason for that. Marianne smiled. I can't promise you anything about the future, but I can promise you one thing right now. Ronnie and I will always try to take care of you. Mackenzie winked. She merely likes me. You really like me. Marianne looked embarrassed. Oh, I'm winding you up. He looked serious for a moment and gave him a smack on the shoulder. I'd trust the pair of you with my life. He opened the double doors to the living room. And that's never happened to me before, he said, sincerely, before holding the door open. Marianne ducked under his arm and walked into the living room. Aww. Ronnie, Marianne and Mackenzie ended up having a movie marathon night, snacking throughout, although nobody but Mackenzie had any more alcohol. I'm going to say drank any more alcohol. Drank any more alcohol. They were on to their third film before they all started to fall asleep. Ronnie was the first to wake up and saw that Mackenzie and Marianne were curled up together on the side of the sofa, fast asleep. She smiled and carefully moved herself from under the duvet and snuck downstairs. Marianne came downstairs a few hours later, a little before the sun rose. Since her room was adjacent to the stairs, Ronnie heard the footsteps as they came down, even though they were trying to be quiet. Ronnie poked her head from outside the double doors and beckoned Marianne in. Marianne entered the suite, and Ronnie closed the door behind them. Well? She asked. Marianne gave a sad smile. Well, what? They realised what Ronnie was hinting at, and the smile became somewhat more melancholy. The best thing is he knows I like him and he's not revolted. Nothing will ever come of it. Why not? Marianne sat with Ronnie at the end of the bed. Because he's a straight guy. He won't be able to get past the reality of who and what I am. Straight guys can't. You know, the fact that he's comfortable to fall asleep in the same space as me is enough. I'm pleased he knows and didn't push me away. Ronnie shook her head. I'm still struggling with what he told us. Do you think Carruthers told Oakley and Farnborough? Marianne shrugged. I don't know, but my guess is not. It's so messed up. It's bad enough that it happens to anyone, but the fact it happened to someone who was supposed to be protected. All children are meant to be protected, interrupted Marianne. Ronnie nodded, and there was silence for a couple of minutes as they sat together on the end of the bed. A thought occurred to Ronnie, and she looked across to Marianne. Do you think his experiences as a child helped make him a Yukunda? I'm going to make him Yukunda. Marianne seemed to consider this. It would make sense. It could have gone either way. He ended up sensitive, whereas it could have turned him into a monster. Ronnie shuddered. I don't understand how any parent could allow that to happen. Marianne scowled. Well, she's dead. She can't harm him anymore. Marianne, do you ever wonder about the ethics of all of this? Mackenzie's younger brother thinks he's dead. My parents and all of my friends think I'm dead, apart from Danny. Marianne shook their head. I worry about the ethics all the time. I know how much you're both hurting. Mackenzie shows it whilst you don't, but I know. I think you're both incredible. Incredibly brave, but I'm just going to use the word incredible, I think. And lose the brave. I think you're both incredible. It will soon be over. It will soon be over. Let's put a contraction in there. It'll soon be over, muttered Ronnie. The first bit will be, said Marianne, but once the directors are delivered and the trees stop producing oxygen, well, it won't take long for the phone to ring. Then it sort of all starts again. Hopefully the government will start... Let's put begins there to remove the repetition of the word start. Then it all sort of begins again. Hopefully the government will start implementing the measures. Then it's all about environmental inspections, audits, and the results coming back to you to feed through to Idrisil. At which point you get to watch Mackenzie and I put on weight again. Yes, said Marianne. I'll be cooking a lot more. They stood up. You eaten yet? No. Marianne grabbed Ronnie by the hands and pulled her up like, let me cook some breakfast. The two left Ronnie sweet and headed down the grand curved staircase into the entrance hall. As Oakley had said, no lessons or practice runs happened that day, but on Friday they were in the office for 9:30. The screen was down and the projector was on. Here is what is going to happen for the next 2 days, said Oakley, pointing to the itinerary on the screen. On Wednesday we are going to be driven down to London by Lord Farnborough's driver. We will stay in a hotel close to the Palace of Westminster. On Thursday morning we will meet with Derek Cockerell-Wright, the Secretary of State for the Department of Environment, Food and Rural Affairs. The meeting is scheduled for 30 minutes, but we guess it will go on for longer once he realises the stakes. At midday we'll be picked up by helicopter from a park next to the palace. Helicopter? asked Ronnie. Why? Because you won't let us have a private jet, and if I don't get us to Heathrow by helicopter, it'll be almost 2 o'clock before we get to the airport. Add another 2+ hours to get to Edinburgh, and we will miss our next appointment at 4. So a helicopter to Heathrow and a scheduled flight up to Edinburgh. You won't like this either, Ronnie, but we've bought all the seats in business class. It will just be us, so if we need to talk, we can. We have special services on both ends, so we won't be queuing anywhere. A drive will take us to Holyrood, where we will meet Fiona McRae, the Scottish Cabinet Secretary for Environment, Climate Change and Land Reform. Hotel overnight, then Lord Farmer's man will drive us back here, where we wait for the shit to hit the fan. Any questions? They all shook their heads. No grief from Ronnie about business class? No, said Ronnie, I get it. We may need to talk, and it'd be better if there's nobody else about. Who's going? Asked Mackenzie. You and Ronnie, obviously, said Oakley. Myself and Lord Farnborough. Not Marianne? Mackenzie asked. We don't need him, said Farnborough. Them, corrected Mackenzie quietly. Got a bit of a crush on him, have you? Fooled by the badly applied makeup? Didn't notice his Adam's apple? Farnborough was laughing. He thought he was being funny and that everyone else would be laughing with him. He realised that the room had gone silent. What? It's no him, it's them, said Mackenzie, his voice dangerously low. Have some fucking respect, you pig. They have seen me through this. Every time I've not been able to sleep, they've talked to me until I felt better. Every time I wet the bed, they've cleared up after me and not made me feel foolish about it afterwards. When I told Carruthers I was assaulted as a child because he didn't do his job properly, they made me feel safe again. You think I've done okay? Well, if I have, it's not because of anything you two have done. It's thanks to Marianne. They and Ronnie have kept me sane. I want Marianne to come with us. I need them to. Ronnie looked sideways at Mackenzie. She had not known about the bedwetting, but her urge to protect him went up a notch as soon as he said it. I agree. We need them. Oakley nodded. His complexion had gone slightly white at the things Mackenzie had said. OK, they cannot attend the actual meetings, but they can come with us. Farnborough rolled his eyes. Really? Really, replied Oakley. If you need them, Mackenzie, then consider it done. Bugger it! I'd better tell Woodsy to bring the bigger car, exclaimed Farnborough in annoyance. Yeah, don't want to change any of that, particularly. Poor Mackenzie, as I say, what a shitty time he's had. And, yeah. Right, let's I'm gonna go straight into the next chapter, I think. It is a longer chapter, but if I get that signed off today, that's such a good start. Right, so Word document exported. Let's just open Grammarly up in Safari. Let's drag it into here. Okay, so what overall score is it giving me before I start correcting it? 85, not bad. Have I spelt it wrong, or is it an English thing? Let me do it. Practiced versus... Yeah, there we go. In British English... Ah, right, so it's actually right on this occasion. It's I've used the American form, and I need to change it to the British form. That's good. Why is that any different? Okay. No, I'm happy with that. Cast iron is going to want that. Never dared to ask you. Yeah, okay, that is a better way of saying that. That's right. Yep. I'm going to put very instead of really. I just want to check something quickly, hang on. Oh, I am streaming, okay. Just checking I was. Suddenly I thought, oh, what if I'm not? It's all off. Yeah, all the time. Okay, excellent. So let's just get that put into the right document. Today would be good. As I say, I have done work on these before. It isn't right. So that's 15 signed off. Let me drag it into the edited folders page. Is it going to piss me off again? Yeah. Right. Wow. God, I'm doing well. So let's just, I'm keeping a running total of the new word count as well. So chapter 50, let me just see. So recent documents, Empress length numbers. So chapter 15 was 4541, it's now 4538, so basically the same. Oh. So we're on 83,000 words at this point in the story. Are there any that have substantially changed? Chapter 1. Oh, I'm comparing the wrong bits. No. Right, anyway. Doesn't matter. I'm just going to load up chapter 16, which is the end of part 2 of the book. It's a long chapter, this one, so forgive me. I might not get it all done now. It all depends how quickly it reads, basically. So let me print it. Okay. And I'll that a minute or two because it's going to take a while for all that to print out, all 25 pages. Yeah. Oh, wow. So I'll be at chapter 16, which basically leaves me two chapters. No, I'll have done 5 today, which leaves me 4. I'm definitely going to be ahead of my schedule, which is terrific, because I would actually like, although I've set myself a target of the end of July to get this done, I would actually like to do it by the end of June. Now, work have somehow, and this really surprised me, but they've offered unpaid leave for all of July. So, yeah. I just had a thought about that, actually. No, I won't think about that because it'll just make me angry. Right, give me a moment. I'm just going to nip upstairs and grab the next 13 bits of paper and see if we can get this chapter knocked out as well. Ooh. Right. Chapter 16. Now this one does have additional material in it that wasn't in the original chapter. Not much. Let me just compare the number of words, actually. It might be slightly longer, so it's 9546. Oh, why? Why does this never want to bloody open? Recent, so let's just... Whoa, fucking... Sorry for swearing. Why isn't the file opening? Come on. Okay, let's close down numbers completely and try opening it again from scratch, see if that works. Why is this important? It's not. Oh, there we go. So yeah, this has got an extra 300 words. Trigger warning. It's not a graphic depiction, but there is some mild sexual activity between two of the characters in this scene that wasn't in the original. So I kind of, like I've sort of said, I felt I needed a better reason for what happens at the end of the chapter, and this gives it. So apologies. Anyway, chapter 16, Truth. I've never been in a limousine before. Marianne stood on the steps looking down at the car Lord Farnborough's driver, Woods, had just driven up to the front of the house. Hummer H3, 130-inch stretch, said Farnborough proudly. Why is it black? Asked Ronnie. I like black, exclaimed Farnborough. There's plenty of room in the boot. Oakley was staring at the cases lined up at the bottom of the steps. Well, if you hadn't insisted that we bring Marianne, I had to rebook hotels and everything. You mean you told someone else to rebook the hotel, said Ronnie. Marianne's presence will help Ronnie, so it's worth it. Still reckon he's got a thing for Marianne, said Farnborough, glaring at them. Mackenzie walked outside through the front door at that moment and joined the others on the steps. He was wearing jeans and a hoodie. Well, this is it. Oakley watched as Woods managed to get four of the suitcases into the boot, and he strapped the fifth into the passenger seat next to him at the front of the car. There was also a pair of briefcases, one for Oakley and a shared one for Ronnie and Mackenzie, that contained hard copies of their documents and 2 flash drives containing electronic copies of the presentations. Woods opened the passenger side rear door, which was just forward of the boot. Farnborough smiled and indicated for the others to get in first. Ursula came down from the top of the steps and gave Ronnie a bony hug. Good luck, dears. You will do brilliantly. I'm so proud of you. Ursula winked at Mackenzie. Thanks, said Mackenzie. He stepped into the car after Ronnie and was immediately awed by the interior. There was a long leather seat, black and grey leather, that started immediately behind the driver and curved around and then along the left-hand side of the car. The right-hand side was a complex series of glass racks set in a polished oak-panelled unit with a hole in the middle that housed an ice bucket. 2 bottles of champagne were poking out from the top, and next to them there was a bar containing at least 10 different spirits, as well as drawers of mixers in cans. Mackenzie shuffled along to the front and took a seat next to Ronnie. Marianne came in and sat next to Mackenzie. Wow! They exclaimed as they looked around them. Outside, Oakley shook Ursula by the hand. Are you sure you want to stay here by yourself rather than go back home for a bit? I'll be fine, dear, said Ursula. She pulled the mobile phone out of her pocket with the home security app loaded up. I know how all of this works, so the house will be secure. What the hell are you going to do with yourself? Asked Farnborough. Well, the kids watched some superhero movies the night of the party, and I'm going to watch... the kids watched some of the superhero movies the night of the party, so I'm going to watch those so we can carry on watching them together when you get back. And heard about a few television series that are meant to be jolly entertaining. What's the one about the school teacher who makes drugs in America? You're going to watch Breaking Bad? Asked Oakley with a grin. Yes, dear, good luck. Oakley climbed into the car, taking one of the seats at the back. Farnborough climbed in after him and took the other, and watched as Woods closed the door. A few moments later, the man appeared in the driving seats. Onwards, Woodsy! called Farnborough theatrically, and closed the screen. The privacy screen rose quietly behind Ronnie's head. The car moved forwards gently. I would like to say a few words, said Farnborough. I thought you might, muttered Ronnie. Well, of course I would. Marianne, can you pour 4 glasses of champagne? 5, corrected Oakley. Marianne leaned across, opened the bottle and started to pour. I just wanted to thank you both for your hard work and attention to detail, continued Farnborough. This is a serious business. If we fail, it could mean the end of life as we know it. Even if we succeed, the world will never be the same again. You are just 2 of over 200 of Idrisil's ambassadors who will be delivering the directives to governments across the world tomorrow. In a sense, we are just giving the various governments the facts along with a nudge from Idrisil and hoping they see sense. Whatever they decide, I'm genuinely proud of what you have achieved. I hate to single out Mackenzie, but with everything you've had to deal with, most of which we have only just found out about, I want to say that you are inspirational. Marianne had handed a glass of champagne out to everyone. Farnborough raised his. Mackenzie. He took a sip. The others followed suit, and Mackenzie looked embarrassed. And what can I say about my little firebrand? Veronica, you take no shit from anyone, and you are bloody marvellous. I haven't even dared to bring my cigars with me today, thanks to you. Ronnie smiled. Good. You are smart, you have empathy, and you say it like it is. I am proud to be associated with you. To Veronica. He raised his glass again, and they all had a drink. Finally, Mr. Oakley, you have worked tirelessly to put all of this together over the last 4 years. I had the easy job. I just said what needed to be done. You did it. Thank you for your hard work and for all the hard work to come. Everyone raised their glasses again. "Thank you, everyone," said Farnborough. Mackenzie spoke. "And I want to thank Ronnie and Marianne. I could not have come this far without them." He looked at Marianne. "Especially you. Thank you." He raised their glass to them and took a sip. Ronnie drained a glass. "That's rather Moorish. Can I have some more?" "Aye," agreed Mackenzie. "And are there any snacks?" The drive was going to take 6 hours, even if the traffic was light. They were due to arrive at the hotel at 5 o'clock. Mackenzie and Ronnie were word perfect with their presentations by now and did not see the point of going through them again. Both Oakley and Farnborough were happy with that. The car had left Forest Lodge at 10 o'clock that morning. Lunch was at a motorway service station on the M6. Other than that, there was not much to do. Ronnie and Marianne dozed, and Mackenzie sat between them, thinking all of his Christmas had come at once as they slept against him. "I can't work out if you're gay or not." Farmer's usual lack of tact interrupted Mackenzie's thoughts. "Excuse me?" "Well, you seem to like lovely Veronica, and I can't say I blame you. I'd have a go if I were a few years younger." That's nice, muttered Mackenzie. "Not if you were the last man on earth," said Ronnie very loudly, even though her eyes were closed. Unabashed, Farnborough continued. "That could happen. Anyway, there was also definitely a spark between you and Marcus." "Marcus? His real name," laughed Farnborough, pointing at the sleeping Marianne. "They never told us their old name," snapped Mackenzie. "I didn't need or want to know that." "Yes, but what are you, Mackenzie? In the new world, if all of this fails, Israel won't be able to save 1 billion people. Tens of thousands, maybe. We will not have babies. I don't see the point of saving Marcus or whatever it wants to call itself, or you, or anybody that can't be part of growing the population." Mackenzie shook his head. "Whatever." Oakley smiled. "Refusing to comment, Mackenzie?" "Aye." He put his arm around Marianne's shoulders and closed his eyes. "Good for you," Oakley muttered quietly to himself. The large car pulled up outside the hotel at just after 6:30 that evening. Whilst it was not dark, the clouds were heavy in the sky and it was raining. Woods helped the porters to put their belongings onto a trolley. Ronnie woke up properly when the car stopped. She stepped out and looked around her. The hotel entrance faced straight down Westminster Bridge. She had glanced out of the window as they crossed the river, with the impressive view of the London Eye as it passed behind them. She looked back across the bridge, and the only part of the Palace of Westminster that she could see from this vantage point was Elizabeth Tower. All that was covered with scaffolding and sheets, so that Big Ben was completely obscured. I'm going to say the clock, because Big Ben is there. That's me making an error. Let me just... I'm going to put the clock. Being here made everything seem very real. Mackenzie was standing behind her, looking at the same thing. It all seems so huge now. What we're about to do. What we're about to tell the world to do. He looked at all of the cars and buses streaming past them, and then pointed to an aeroplane that was flying westwards at quite a low altitude, no doubt on the final approach to Heathrow Airport. All of that will have to go. All of the pilots and crew on that plane are going to be out of a job. Most of the bus drivers, the people that work at the petrol stations, have put fuel in all of these cars. Ronnie grabbed his hand on one side and Marianne put her arm around him from the other. But things will be better for it. Mackenzie stood looking at all the people around them, the mothers pushing prams, the men with cell phones glued to their ears, and everybody else walking oblivious to what was happening around them. He'd never seen this volume and density of people before. The realisation that everyone he could see would soon experience the impact of the message they were about to deliver was quite terrifying. It would all start tomorrow when they talked to an influential man in an office on the other side of the river. "What are you thinking?" "What are you thinking?" asked Ronnie. "Shit in hell, mainly," was his reply. Ronnie sighed. "Me too, Mackenzie," she said. "Me too." Woods had phoned ahead to the hotel, and as such someone came out to greet them and take them straight to their rooms. The booking was for a pair of 2-bedroom suites that included a balcony terrace that overlooked the river, the bridge and the palace. Ronnie and Mackenzie elected to take one of the suites, leaving Oakley and Farnborough to share the other. Because Marianne was a late addition, their room was on a different floor and on the other side of the hotel. Let's just add the on. And on the other side of the hotel, there was a comfortable-looking double sofa bed in each of the suites, which Marianne asked if they could use instead, which Ronnie and Mackenzie agreed to. The porter brought their bags across a few minutes later. Oakley knocked on the door at just after 7:30. "We have a reservation for dinner if you want to join Lord Farnborough and myself. Alternatively, please feel free to use the room service." Ronnie asked the others, and they decided to eat in the room. Oakley looked a little disappointed, but agreed. We have to arrive at Westminster at 10:15. His lordship and I will come here at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning for a final briefing. We will see you then. He left, and Ronnie closed and bolted the door behind him. Marian had found the room service menus and handed one each to Ronnie and Mackenzie. What are you doing? They both asked, practically simultaneously. Well, choose your food and I'll order it for you. No, Mackenzie shook his head. You're not here to be the secretary or the maid. You're here because I need you, so we can order our own food, added Ronnie. I'm going to say we need you to be rather than I. I still think he'd probably be a bit reticent to go, oh, it's me that needs you here. Let's just change that to we. You are here. Because there's a word missing there, which somehow I've managed to not notice. Because we need you to be. So we can order our own food, added Ronnie. Aye, and drink, so we can order yours as well. So sit down, help yourself to something from the minibar and relax. Marian did as they were told. Right, this is sorry about this bit coming up. They had food, watched some television together, then stood outside on the balcony taking in the view. Watching the sun slowly set between the clouds on the other side of the river, they all went to bed at just after 10. Oh, I'm going to put a clock in as well. With Marian insisting that they would wake them up at 7 the next morning. As usual, Mackenzie struggled to sleep in unfamiliar surroundings. He was terrified of wetting the bed, and this thought and others kept bouncing around his head. What Farnborough had said to him in the car, questioning his sexuality, was worrying him. He wanted to go and talk to Marianne, but Farnborough's comments stopped him. After almost 3 hours of tossing and turning in bed, he decided that he was being ridiculous. It was why Marianne was with them after all. With a feeling of dread, he kept out of his room, walked through to the living room part of the suite with the sofa bed, and looked at the sleeping form of Marianne. It was as though they had a sixth sense, because as he walked in, their eyes opened. Hi, said Marianne, stretching their arms out above their head and yawning. I thought you might want some company. I expected you to come and talk to me before now, to be honest. They sat up, their usually carefully plaited hair loose around their shoulders. Mackenzie sat on the side of the bed, wishing he put a dressing gown over his pyjama bottoms. I can't help worrying. About tomorrow, about being in a hotel room, about wetting the bed. I'm going to be exhausted. You've never had any accidents when me or Ronnie have been keeping you company, have you? Mackenzie looked abashed. No. Marianne smiled through the duvet cover back. Come on then. Mackenzie froze on the spot. Are you sure? He asked without moving a muscle. Of course, I should have suggested it earlier, sorry. Tentatively, Mackenzie climbed onto the bed and pulled the duvet back over himself. Marianne cuddled up to him and closed his eyes. Mackenzie felt an erection starting to form and squirmed uncomfortably, trying to angle his body away from them. I need to sleep. He turned in the bed so that his back was to them. I know. Good night, Mackenzie. Night. They put their arms around Mackenzie from behind and accidentally brushed him. He froze in horror and heard Marianne laugh softly. Don't be embarrassed or ashamed, they whispered into his ear. It's a natural reaction. Mackenzie did not know what to say, so he said nothing. Marianne's hand descended again, then moved carefully between his skin and his pyjama bottoms. They grasped him gently. He gave out a little gasp, and Marianne gently kissed his shoulder. Tell me to stop if I'm making you uncomfortable, they whispered into his ear as they stroked. His breath became slightly more rapid, and he closed his eyes. Marianne kept moving the hand until the inevitable happened. They leaned back and grabbed a tissue from the nightstand by the bed and carefully cleaned him, their eyes locked on his as they did so, sympathetic smile on their face. Just chill, sweetheart, and sleep will come. You're safe. They leaned over and kissed his cheek whilst moving their hands higher up so they were nowhere near any sensitive areas, and felt him relax again. That was all new. The hand job wasn't in the original version, but they're obviously getting closer, and he could have said, please don't, but he didn't, so... And it just sets up what happens later better than what was originally. Mackenzie lay still, confused about his feelings for the person that was holding him. He felt warm and protected. Protected and safe. Let's put... And as such, fell into a deep sleep. Ronnie was awake before Marianne and Mackenzie. She walked through the living room to get to the bathroom and saw the pair curled up in the sofa bed. She smiled and crept past. It was half an hour before they needed to get up. She took a long shower and left the bathroom in a thick dressing gown. As she passed through the living room heading towards the kitchenette, she gently shook Mackenzie by the shoulder. Morning, she said. Today's the day. Mackenzie opened his eyes and sat up slowly. He checked under the duvet, Thankfully everything was dry. He tried to sneak out from under the covers without making Marianne, but they were still curled around him. Their eyes opened and they smiled. "Thank you," said Mackenzie. "I managed to get some sleep." Marianne stretched again. "Good, good. I'm going to have a shower," he said, dashing off to his room. "Can I make you a coffee?" Ronnie asked Marianne. Marianne was about to leap up and insist on doing it themselves, but remembered what had been said last night. "Yes, please, that would be lovely." Ronnie headed for the kitchenette door, then turned back. "Is he okay?" "I think so," replied Marianne. "And you?" Marianne looked slightly embarrassed as though they didn't know what to say. Ronnie nodded. "Thought not. Are you going to tell him?" Marianne shook his head. "He knows," they said. "Something happened last night. Nothing serious," they continued as Ronnie raised their eyebrows. "I touched him. He didn't stop me." Ronnie sat down next to them and frowned. "Was that wise, with what he told us?" Marianne looked guilty. "I didn't plan it. It just sort of happened." Ronnie glanced towards the shower room. "He didn't run away in terror, so I think you're okay." "Of course. But I don't know how." Hang on. No, I'm just going to remove the thing that Marianne says there because he's Yakunda, he won't be nasty. Marianne shook their head. "It's more about not wanting to mess with his head anymore." They shook their head. "I'm just a bit annoyed with myself." Looked down their feet. "He was already aroused. I just took advantage of the situation." Ronnie looked thoughtful. "I'm sure it'll be okay," she said. "Sugar? No milk? Perfect." Oakley and Lord Farnborough. Oh, my control system has just shut itself down. Yeah, so that wasn't in the original version. Oh, what's it doing? Oh, there you go. Is it still on? It's still on. Oakley and Lord Farnborough knocked on the suite door at just after 8. Ronnie had decided to wear the skirt rather than trousers, a fact which Farnborough approved of rather vociferously. "Good choice, my dear," he beamed. "Great way to get Cockle-Wright's attention." He tapped his nose. "Bit of a dirty old man, you see." The doorbell rang behind him, which he ignored. Ronnie resisted the temptation to say "it takes one to know one," and instead answered the door. The hotel had laid out a buffet breakfast for them, and once the trolleys had been delivered to the suite, they all helped themselves. "Where's Mackenzie?" asked Farnborough as he stuffed a croissant into his mouth. "I'm here," said Mackenzie as he walked into the room. Marianne and Ronnie did a double take. It was the first time they'd seen him in his kilt. His highly polished black boots fed into the black, almost knee-length socks. The colourful kilt started just above his knees, leading up past a black leather sporran topped with a silver cantle to a thick leather belt with an immaculate silver buckle. His doublet was long-sleeved and double-breasted, with square silver studs running down the left and right-hand side, looking almost like a breastplate. The collar was raised apart from a 4-inch gap in the middle, under which you could see a white shirt, under which they could see. And let's just show you what he looks like. The only thing is, the sample photo I've got is of a different tartan, but I've got what they're wearing basically because I wanted to know. Let's see if I can find it. There we go. So that's what Mackenzie's wearing. Yeah, different. The what do you call it? The tartan is a different tartan, but that's what Mackenzie is wearing. And that's what Ronnie's wearing. There we go. I'm sure I'll describe hers vaguely soon. Ronnie beamed. "You look terrific." Ronnie's maroon skirt ended just below her knee. She also wore a modest white blouse under the collar line close to the neck, which I don't think that has got actually, and sleeves that went slightly further than her elbows. A jacket of the same colour as the skirt hung over the back of the chair. She was wearing flat shoes. She'd worn heels so rarely that she worried about walking properly in them. Slightly bashfully, Mackenzie looked her up and down. "So do you." Ronnie looked over the breakfast trolleys and was slightly annoyed to see there was a freshly opened bottle of champagne amongst the other food. "Marianne, can you do the honours with the champers?" asked Farnborough. Marianne stepped forward, but Mackenzie pushed past them. "They're not here for that," he muttered, and inexpertly poured a champagne himself, not tilting the glass. It was soon a mess of bubbles. Marianne smiled. "Allow me," they said, as they took the glass, tilted it, then successfully poured 4 more. Once they had eaten, they went through a dry run of the presentation. Ronnie was word perfect, and Farnborough congratulated her. "We can go through the second presentation on the plane," he said. "No point having 2 sets of information in your heads." Oakley held the had the briefcase with the hard copies and the memory sticks. There will be at least 2 people in this meeting, perhaps 3. There will be Derek Cockrell-Wright, the DEFRA Minister, and Sir Oliver Vaughan, DEFRA's Permanent Secretary. He's the civil servant who ensures the department runs properly. They may also have Cockrell-Wright's principal private secretary with them, who is the civil servant who runs his office. That's Teresa Burke. Then there will be the 4 of us. Marianne may come with us to the palace, but may not attend the meeting itself. Is that clear? This question was directed at Mackenzie, who nodded. Aye. Woodsy will pack up the suitcases and drive them up to Edinburgh once he's dropped us off at Westminster. He will meet us at the hotel there after the second presentation and dinner and drive us back to Forest Lodge tomorrow morning. Any questions? Everyone shook their heads. Farmer smiled. Let's do this then. Woods met them at reception and walked them to the car. He drove straight out onto the road that led over the bridge towards the hidden clock tower that contained the currently silent Big Ben, which I can say because that's the name of the bell. Hooray! Thanks to the one-way system, Woods had to drop them off at Parliament Square, and the 5 of them walked the length of the palace until they got to the entrance at Blackrod's garden. Farnborough saw them through the security checks and then led them confidently along what looked like a maze of tunnels and stairways. Finally, they came to a room. Farnborough knocked at the door, which was opened. A black middle-aged lady answered the door. Lord Farnborough, she said with a polite smile. Oh, I've forgotten Teresa Burke was black. Lord Farnborough said with a polite smile, welcome, please come in. The minister is running a few minutes late, but he'll be back shortly. Let me show Marianne to the canteen, said Farnborough. This is Teresa Burke, by the way. Marianne hugged Ronnie. Good luck, they said, then winked at Mackenzie. You too. Mackenzie followed them with his eyes. Lord Farnborough led them away. He, Ronnie and Oakley, entered the meeting room. As a room, it was far too big for what they needed it for. It was a committee room and could easily hold 50 people or more. There was a desk on the far wall upon which were various things, including Cockrell-Wright's red dispatch box, which was closed. There were 4 seats in a row in front of the desk, which Mrs. Burke indicated they should sit in. Ronnie and Mackenzie took the middle seats, Oakley the one on the left, and Oakley one on the left. Farnborough was back a few minutes later and took the seat on the right when he entered the room. He glanced at his watch. It was 5 past. Mrs. Burke also looked at her watch as everyone sat in silence. There's a letter missing. As everyone sat in silence. Cockrell-Wright kept them waiting for almost half an hour before sweeping into the room and slamming the door behind him, and Sir Oliver Vaughan, who close to follow. Cockrell-Wright kept them waiting for almost half an hour before sweeping into the room and slamming the door behind him, and Sir Oliver Vaughan, who followed close behind. The pair sat. Terribly sorry, exclaimed Cockrell-Wright. Stuff to do. Would probably have cancelled it if it wasn't for... He left the words hanging in the air and looked at his hands, then at Farnborough. You know. Ronnie's heart was beating extremely fast. She took a deep breath and stood up. Good morning, Minister, she said. In her mind, her voice was wobbling all over the place. My name is Veronica Arden. I'm an ambassador to Idrisil, the Empress of the Trees. You need to listen to what she has to say if you want the human race to survive. Vaughan and Burke looked at each other, but Cockrell-Wright raised his hands. If it were not for Lord Farnborough's little demonstration last week, that sentence would have sounded utterly insane. Demonstration? Vaughan looked unsure. Cockrell-Wright handed him a tablet computer which had on it the video Farnborough made of Cockrell-Wright's brief interface with the tree. Vaughan and Burke watched the tree absorb Cockrell-Wright's hands, then looked up. What is this? Burke asked. This is a tree communicating with me. It told me to listen to and act upon what their ambassador, Miss Arden here, tells me to do. So, I'm listening. The message from Idrisil is very simple, said Ronnie. They want us to stop harming the planet, reduce population, reduce carbon emissions. Every government official worldwide with responsibility for the environment will be receiving these directives today. This is all in line with what we are trying to achieve, replied Cockrell-Wright. Under this government, we have committed to a carbon-neutral environment by the year 2050 and an increased percent of electricity generated by renewable methods. He glanced sideways at Burke and smiled before turning his head back. It's in our manifesto, you know. Did you read it? Ronnie shook her head. That is too little and too late. You have 10 years. On again. Yes. Well, I want to get... Actually, I'm doing quite well. I want to get this chapter done because it just then leaves me 3 days to do the other 4 chapters that I've done most of the editing work. This is just a final sign-off on paper. But yeah, I want to get it done because I've set myself a target of the end of July to do these 44 chapters, but if I can do it by the end of June, that's better. So that's sort of my plan. Yeah. Did you have was it breakfast you were going to have? I'm trying to think. Oh, it's still morning where you are. Oh no, it's not morning. It's I'm getting my hours mixed up. It's gone lunchtime now, isn't it? Ronnie shook her head. That is too little, too late. You have 10 years. Until what? Not until anything, said Ronnie. To meet the following directives. These come from Idrisil herself, and they are not negotiable. Everything is negotiable, stated Cockerwright. This is not. I'm going to change that to these are not. So these are not. These are not. Ronnie took a deep breath. Firstly, you need to reduce the population of the country to 7 million. Oh, is that all? Scoffed. Waiting on Storm. Oh. Let's do a bit of Googling. Sorry, a bit of internet searching. Whether... Oh, wow. Chance of severe storms with all weather hazards at play looms over the Chicago area, along with high humidity. Oh, have fun. Oh, is that all, scoffed Sir Oliver? It's what, 67 million now? How on earth do we do that? We are not asking you to hurt anyone. We are saying that you need to rapidly slow the birth rate. Is that all? Repeated the civil servant. Quiet, Sir Oliver, snapped Cockerwright. Let us just listen. Carry on, Miss Arden. It is up to you how you implement this population reduction. There are several suggestions in the pack I'm going to give you. The target population for the planet... YT bobbleheads, I don't know what that is. Wisconsin, okay. YouTube, okay. Oh, of course it is, sorry. YT here means part of the, we have a thing called YTS, which stands for Youth Training Scheme. It is up to you how you implement this population reduction. There are several suggestions in the pack I'm going to give to you. The target population of the planet, as defined by Idrisil, is 1 billion human lives. Reduce the population by 7/8. Wow. Do carry on. Ronnie nodded. Number 2. End reliance on fossil fuels within 10 years. We recommend that you initially gradually increase the price of all base products, including petrol, over the next 10 years, so that in the end it is simply not affordable. Publish the dates in advance of every price increase. This will allow people to realign their lives so their employment is close to where they live. Also, flights must be reduced by 99%. Burke gasped. And how will I visit my family? You move there, or they move here, or will limit your contact to the virtual. Each country will be allocated a strict volume of fuel that they can use per day. We suggest they're used for cargo, but it is up to each jurisdiction to decide what they do with it. And when does this have to happen? Within a year. A year? Spluttered Sir Oliver. I've got shares in IAG. That's International Airlines Group. They run or own things like British Airways, there's about several. Level. Aer Lingus? There's a few. Anyway, I've got shares in IAG. Cockerwright rolled his eyes. Then I would sell them very quickly. Ronnie continued. There are also similar targets for fuel ships. You need to end your reliance on other people producing food and hardware and go back to making and growing your own things. Next, we need to move the whole population to a plant-based diet within 10 years. This gives you time to grow more food and to escalate the price of meat. Sir Oliver stood up. I've had enough of this farce. Sit down, commanded Cockerwright. I agree there is a lot to discuss. Let us hear the whole package first. Those are the Idrisil directives, stated Ronnie. I'm going to hand you over to my colleague Mackenzie MacDonald to tell you about compliance and consequences. She sat down and breathed. She had almost used his real name, but remembered at the last moment why it was so important that she did not. If anyone ran their real names through any kind of search, the fact that they were both missing, presumed dead, was bound to come up. Mackenzie stood up. As you will see from the brief we will give you, there are strict milestones within the detail of these directives. We appreciate that you cannot stop population growth overnight, but you have to make a plan and implement it. There are deadlines for the delivery of the plan, for example, and then deadlines for putting in the infrastructure in place, then deadlines for the initial reduction in population. A lot of the post-war baby boomers are retiring now, said Cocklewright mirthlessly. If we can reduce birth weights, there will initially be a very sharp population decline. Aye, said Mackenzie. All of that has been taken into consideration. As I said, every target has a list of key milestones at key dates. How you achieve them is up to you, but you must achieve them. Or what? Snapped Sir Oliver. I was coming to that, said Mackenzie. Yggdrasil is connected to every living piece of plant matter on the planet. They will have neutral observers in place to ensure targets are being met. The ambassadors, myself, Veronica, and every other ambassador around the world will receive information from these observers. It will be our job to communicate to Yggdrasil if the directives are being met and if the milestones have been achieved. Cocklewright leaned forward. And if they are not? Yggdrasil will instruct every plant-based organisation on the planet to stop producing oxygen. The levels of oxygen on the planet will rapidly drop until animal kind cannot survive. Cocklewright shook his head. They would go that far. Aye. Ronnie looked at the firm set of Mackenzie's jaw as he delivered the shocking ultimatum. He had not faltered. She knew how nervous he was, but he had shown no sign of it at all. Minister, can I ask a question? Cocklewright nodded at Sir Oliver, who continued. How do we know that your Yggdrasil is capable of this? Mackenzie gave a grim smile. Because starting at midnight, Sir Oliver, Yggdrasil is going to demonstrate what she can do. From tomorrow, no plant on this planet will produce oxygen. Instead, they will produce carbon dioxide. You should be able to detect the change in the atmosphere within 2 weeks. She intends to demonstrate for 4. That is how you will know. Mackenzie sat down to stunned silence from Cocklewright and his aides. Ronnie stood up. I have detailed dossiers for you here. She took the case from Oakley and opened it. Hard copy, which she put on the desk, and electronic copy. She handed Cocklewright a memory stick, which the minister placed into his dispatch box. You realise this is literally the biggest and fastest change that anyone in the world has ever been asked to make? Asked Cocklewright. Yes, we do. We do, said Ronnie. One of the files on the memory stick is a list of the other worldwide government representatives that we have contacted. The file will open after every person has had their meeting by this time tomorrow morning. We can't take this to the department, complained Sir Oliver. They'll think we're crazy. Department? I need to take it to the PM, scoffed Cocklewright. She's barely literate at the best of times. Trying to make her understand all of this, let alone act upon it, is going to be extremely challenging. She needs to take it seriously, said Ronnie. Cocklewright nodded. I know. If I need further information or to clarify anything, may I contact you? Ronnie inclined her head. Of course. I have also given you the contact details from Mr. Oakley here in case I'm otherwise engaged. Otherwise engaged? Periodically, I have to report back to Yggdrasil, said Ronnie. That takes time. I may be away for weeks at a time. Understood. Cocklewright rose to his feet and walked around the table. He shook Ronnie and Mackenzie by the hand. Thank you for your candour. I will contact you in due course. With that, Cocklewright and his aides collected their things, locked the dispatch box, and left the room, Sir Oliver scowling. Farmer stood up and indicated for the others to do so. Come. The quicker we can get up to Holyrood, the better. A pre-booked car took them the short distance to the nearest heliport, and soon the 5 of them were looking down over the River Thames and the Houses of Parliament. It was just gone 11:15, so they were running ahead of schedule. Farmer congratulated them both on their performances. Mackenzie felt a little sick, but insisted it was sheer nerves from the morning and nothing to do with the flight. They landed at another heliport just west of Heathrow Airport, and a car whisked them from there to Heathrow, where special services met them and took them through a private security area. We are a couple of hours early, Ronnie noted. Are we having something to eat? We're going to catch the earlier flight, stated Farnborough. I thought you booked out the whole business class on the flight. I thought you booked out the whole of business class on the flight we were supposed to be on. I did, agreed Farnborough. And the one before, and the one after. Ronnie shook her head, annoyed, but soon they were being taken through Terminal 5 to the gates at the northern end where the domestic flights departed. They boarded last, once all of the other passengers were on the aircraft. As soon as they walked in, a crew member closed the door behind them. The plane was an Airbus A319, and the first 5 rows were given over to business class. They sat in the middle of the cabin, leaving 2 empty rows between them and the curtain that, once they were airborne, would separate them from the rest of the passengers. They waited no time for air traffic control experience. The doors to the plane had closed early, and the pilot told them over the public address that they had been given immediate clearance to start the engines and push back. He had also said that there were delays due to low air traffic control flow rate over parts of Scotland, but they did not seem to be affected. I wonder how that happened, winked Farnborough knowingly. There were no delays in taxiing. Indeed, they were allowed to jump the queue of planes waiting for departure, which again amused Farnborough. As soon as they were up in the air, remember the cabin crew came through and closed the divided curtain between business class and economy. "Well," said Farnborough, "I don't see the need to rehearse again unless you want to. Instead, I suggest you enjoy the flight." A crew member in a platinum tie came in and said they'd been instructed to leave them in peace, but to let them know if they required food. Farnborough ordered a salad for everyone and some champagne. Mackenzie had never flown before today and was feeling a little queasy, but all of the others ate the food. After the champagne, Farnborough asked for brandy for everyone, including Mackenzie, but he was the only one to drink it. The plane touched down just an hour after they took off. Mackenzie could not believe how far they'd come and how quickly, and started to feel better again almost as soon as his feet. I'm going to read that paragraph again. The plane touched down just over an hour after they took off. Mackenzie could not believe how far they'd come and how quickly, and started to feel better again almost as soon as his feet touched solid ground. A car met them at the aircraft door and whisked them out of the airport and into the city. It was not long after 2 o'clock, the time the original flight was supposed to be departing from Heathrow. Farnborough got on the phone as soon as they were in the car and was able to arrange to have their meeting brought forward. They met Carruthers in a lobby in the Scottish Parliament building, where they were led into a smaller committee room that contained Fiona Macrae and 2 more civil servants. Mackenzie could not look at Carruthers. As rehearsed, this time Mackenzie covered the directives and Ronnie covered compliance and consequences. There were a lot fewer comments from the civil servants, and again the minister implied that she would have found it hard to believe if Carruthers had not given a practical demonstration before the meeting. As before, the ministers seemed to take their words seriously. After the presentation was complete, they left, and Farnborough arranged for a taxi to take them to the hotel. It was just after 4 by the time they arrived. Woods contacted them to say he was stuck in traffic, would not get there until at least 7 o'clock. Because their bags were not due to arrive for another 2 or 3 hours, Farnborough made a phone call and arranged for their dinner booking to be brought forward. They spent a nice couple of hours eating at the Ivy using taxis to get there and back. By the time they got back to the hotel, Woods had arrived, looking stressed. "I'm really sorry for my late arrival, my lord," he said when he saw them in reception. In an unusually jovial mood, Farnborough brushed his concerns aside. "You can't help the traffic, old boy. I shall just check that nobody else wants you for anything else before I stand you down." He looked around to the others. "Does anybody else need Woodsy before I let him get some rest?" There was a pause, and then Mackenzie piped up. "Is there any chance I could go out to a shopping centre, have a bit of a wander around and grab a coffee? I just want to feel like a normal person again." Woods braved a smile. "Of course, sir." "You've had a long day." "You've had a long day. I could always get a cab," said Mackenzie. "No, that's fine," said Woods. "Now?" "Can I change?" asked Mackenzie, indicating his clothes. I feel a bit overdressed. I'm dying to get back into a pair of jeans. I can meet you down here in 10 minutes. Marianne walked over to him. "Can I come?" Farnborough rolled his eyes. "Oh, I see." Mackenzie ignored him. "Of course. 10 minutes enough for you?" Marianne nodded and made for the lifts. Mackenzie walked up to Ronnie. "What about you?" Ronnie thought about it for a moment. She did want to go. It would feel so wonderfully normal, especially without Farnborough or Oakley, but it crossed her mind that Mackenzie was merely asking her out of politeness. She gave him a warm smile. "I'm okay, thank you." She was not sure, but she thought he looked a little disappointed. He walked up to her and hugged her. "Thank you for today," he said into her ear. "I couldn't have done it without you." She stepped back, her hand on his arm. "You were great as well. I'm proud of you. It bodes well for the future." "What future?" Ronnie could see the tears welling up in his eyes, which he fought to control. "The governments won't be able to deliver all of this. All we are doing is delaying the inevitable." Ronnie stood close to him again. "We can't afford to think like that." She grabbed a tissue from her handbag and gave it to him. "I'm sorry," he said. "You seem to have some faith in humanity to do the right thing." Ronnie shook her head. "Not faith, hope." Mackenzie looked away. "Whatever." Ronnie hugged him again. This hotel had no twin-bedroom suites. They all had separate rooms. "Don't be alone if you feel like this. Remember, Marion and I are there for you." Mackenzie nodded. I'm going to put always. I'm just going to add a little always on the end of that. Sorry. Always. Mackenzie nodded. "I know. I must go and get changed." "I'll see you later," said Ronnie, kissing his cheek and then letting go. She walked to the lifts. Mackenzie waited for everyone else to get in the lift, then looked back at Woods. 10 minutes? "Yes, sir," replied the driver. Mackenzie ran to the lifts and went to his room. Mackenzie carefully took his kilt and doublet off and his white shirt. He could not be bothered to change his long socks, but he did open his case and pulled on. and put on some black jeans, a plain grey t-shirt and a sweatshirt. He also fished his winter jacket from the case, then closed it and placed it at the end of the bed. He hung his kilt and doublet in the wardrobe, then looked at his watch. It had taken him about 2 minutes to change. He put his shoes into the wardrobe, reopened the suitcase and pulled out his trainers, which he put on. He sat on the end of the bed for a moment, then looked up. He grabbed his phone and wallet, pushed his wallet into his pocket and placed the phone on the sideboard next to the television. Marion was waiting for him in the lobby with Woods. "I've asked around for a decent mall," said the driver. "They've recommended Fort Kinnaird." "Oh, I asked the concierge as well," lied Mackenzie. "They suggested the Giles shopping centre. There's a food court." "Very well, sir." Marianne followed them out to the car, which looked faintly ridiculous for just the two of them. Mackenzie opened the door for Marianne, who climbed in. He followed them, and Woods shut the door behind them. The car pulled away, and Mackenzie gave Marianne a nervous smile. "I just need to feel normal again. I'm glad you've come too." Marianne looked across at him. He was sitting several seats away. "Are you all right?" "Aye, I will be," he said. After a few minutes, the car came to a stop. All either of them could see out of the windows were stationary vehicles around them. Woods turned. "Just checked. There's been an there's... I'm going to put contraction in there. "Just checked. There's been an accident up the road. It's closed. We could be here for a bit." Mackenzie glanced at his watch and looked nervous. "How far from the shops are we?" "Not even halfway," replied the driver. 4 miles? Mackenzie nodded, looking stressed. He called across to Woods. "Can you close the screen?" Woods nodded and pressed the button so that he was obscured. Mackenzie unbuckled his seatbelt and went and sat next to Marianne. He was pale, and they could see tears in his eyes again. "What's wrong?" they asked. Mackenzie shook his head. "Can I borrow your phone? I left mine at the hotel." Marianne removed the phone from the back pocket, unlocked it and handed it to him. Mackenzie loaded directions to the mall. It was a straight line, and on foot he reckoned he could do it in less than an hour. "I can't do this ambassador rubbish. I'm not cut out for it," he said out loud. Marianne tried to move close to reassure him, but Mackenzie flinched and moved further away. "You did brilliantly today," they said, trying to reassure him. "Aye, but what next? Tell the government they failed. Tell them they've not met a deadline. Tell them they're all going to die. How can I do that? I was barely strong enough to do what I had to do today." He burst into tears. "This is going to be the rest of my fucking life. Held hostage in a big house, doing what other people want me to do. It's not what I want. The human race is too stupid to do what needs to be done to survive. In 2 years, the trees will starve the planet of oxygen, and the human race will die because we're too dumb and too conflicted for anything else to happen. But we will survive. I know it's horrible, but I'd rather be alive in the new world than dead in this one, if you're right." Mackenzie shook his head. "People aren't interested in what's good for everybody. Just what makes their lives easier, or them richer. If people were any good, then my dad would be alive. He died so greedy men could have an easy life. Do you think they gave a shit if he lived or died when they sold him the drugs that killed him? You've only been here a few weeks. You will start to feel better." Mackenzie interrupted. "I can't do it. I won't do it." He pocketed Marianne's phone. My brother is meeting me at the shops." Marianne gasped and her eyes widened. "I'm going home. If the world I know is only going to be here for a couple of years, I'm going to live it out there, slip quietly back into my old life." Marianne shook her head wearily. "Can I please have my phone back?" Mackenzie shook his head. "I like you, Marianne. Far too much. It's another reason that I have to go. I'm so confused about everything, but I need you to help me. I'm not going to give you any secrets. I'm not going to make life hard for you or any of the others. Christ, Ronnie is fantastic. She is everything that I'm not. She doesn't need me. None of you do." Let me just... She's everything I'm not. See, I need to put contraction. "None of you do." Marianne had a sad look in the face. "What do you mean you're confused? Is it something to do with last night?" Mackenzie tilted his head. "Maybe a little. I'm not angry or anything, but I've not stopped thinking about it since. I like you and I don't understand why." Marianne shook her head and nodded. "I'm so sorry, Mackenzie. I went too far and I've scared you." I'm going to take the word away. "I'm desperately sorry." The face hardened. "But I know what's happening in your head." "Do you?" "Yes." Mackenzie paused, looking guilty. "Go on then." "You're worried that liking me makes you gay." They looked at him with a mixture of sadness and disappointment. "Because you are attracted to me, like I am to you." Mackenzie looked down. "I'm sorry. I love you to bits. You've shown me more kindness in 3 short weeks than anyone has in my entire life. I don't want to hurt you. I wish things could be different. I don't know. Look, I could have said nothing and just snuck off when we got there, even if we were slightly late. I'm telling you because I need you to understand. I'm not gay." Marianne shook their head. Mackenzie moved towards them, but it was their turn to retreat. Crying solidly now, Mackenzie moved to the back of the car and the door. I'm sorry. Goodbye. He pulled the door handle. Nothing happened. Shit. Is it locked? Marianne watched from the other side of the car. Aye. Mackenzie slumped into his seat. The car moved forward a few metres, then came to a halt again. Mackenzie looked up and saw that Marianne was heading towards him with a neutral expression on their face. He closed his eyes and hid. Hang on, I just need to remove wearing a neutral expression. He closed his eyes and hid his face. He felt a hand gently touching his shoulder. He opened his eyes again and Marianne was sitting next to him at the back of the car. I get it, they said, their eyes reddening. You've been hurt, but you have such strength and kindness in you despite all of that. I've known you for 3 weeks, Mackenzie. I took some comfort being in that place from knowing that you would be too. I can't bear the thought that you won't be. I will miss you terribly, but I do understand. We did not look after you properly. We should have stopped those dreadful things happening to you, but we didn't. We failed you. They leaned over and kissed his cheek, tears in their eyes, then ran to the front of the car and knocked on the screen. Mr. Woods, they shouted, Mackenzie's having a panic attack. Can you unlock the back door? He needs to step out for some air. Certainly, miss. They both heard a click as the door unlocked. Marianne returned to the rear of the car. Mackenzie's hand was already on the handle. Marianne put their hand on his. Look after yourself. They kissed his cheek again, but he deliberately turned his head, and their lips met briefly and gently. I'm going to lose the gently. Marianne breathed deeply. Marianne exhaled. They kissed his cheek again, but he deliberately turned his head and their lips met briefly. Marianne exhaled and pulled back. He squeezed the hand. I will miss you too, he said, then opened the door and stepped outside. He took a deep breath and ran off in the direction of the shops. Marianne watched him disappear into the traffic and the rain, then closed the door and moved to the front of the car. They took a moment to compose themselves, then rapped their knuckles sharply on the screen between them and Woods. You need to call Lord Farnborough, they said quietly. Mackenzie's just run off. Shit, was Woods' reply as the screen dropped. Do you know which way he's heading? No, said Marianne, shaking the head and trying to dislodge the tears that were obscuring their vision. I have no idea. Farnborough slammed the phone into the glass table in his room. The table remained undamaged, but the phone screen cracked in several places. Oakley, who had been sitting on the sofa looking through some notes on a tablet, looked up. Is everything okay? Obviously not. Mackenzie's gone. Oakley put the tablet down. What do you mean, gone? I mean, gone. Done a runner. Told Marianne that he couldn't cope and he's going home. He's told that the world is going to end in 2 years. He wants to choose who he spends that time with. Oakley rubbed his hands over his eyes. Where was he heading for? The Giles shopping centre, right on the main road out of town. I think he's meeting someone there. Oh, and he has Marianne's mobile. Oakley pulled out his phone and opened an app. It's switched off. His is here in the hotel. I'll get someone onto it. Hopefully they can pick him up before he meets anyone. He's about to dial a number, but Farnborough shook his head. No, don't. What then? He would be a prisoner. I told you he was a liability. I told you we should have dealt with him years ago. It was not the right thing to do then, and it isn't now. Farnborough shook his head. This is your fault, Mr. Oakley. Oakley stood up angrily. That's absolute crap. This was messed up well before I got involved. Did Marianne say anything else? Farnborough looked down at his broken phone again and swore. I just spoke to him on Woodsy's phone. Him? Mackenzie? No, the bloody housekeeper! He said Mackenzie is not out to cause us any trouble. Oakley looked worried. We need to make a decision. We have a very small window of opportunity here. What do you want me to do? Farnborough shook his head. I'm thinking. Oakley gave him a few seconds. And I'm still fucking thinking, shouted Farnborough, running his hands through his hair. He took a deep breath and made a decision. We let him go. He doesn't want to be here and we can't force him. Fuck it, he did so well today. Perhaps you should have told him that then. I did. Perhaps you should have sounded like you meant it. Farnborough glared at him. I need to get out of here. I'm going to tell Woods to run us back to the lodge when he gets back. Tonight? Poor bastard's been driving all day. And he can drive all night too for all I care, snapped Farnborough. Oakley shook his head. All right, when will he get back? No idea. He says traffic is still chaos. An accident and he can't go either way. Farnborough shook his head. Do you think Marianne was in on it? No, said Oakley. He stood up. I will go and let Ronnie know what's happened and that we're going home. Just call her. No, it's very delicate. This is going to upset her a lot. We need her on side, my lord, or we're fucked. Without looking at Farnborough again, he marched out of the room, slamming the door behind him. It was a solemn crowd that left the hotel at just after 8 o'clock that night. Oakley told Ronnie, who was devastated but made sure she was ready to leave as quickly as possible. Woods was tired, so Oakley agreed to share the driving with him. Farnborough told Marianne to go and empty Mackenzie's room in the hotel, a suggestion greeted by derision for insensitive from Oakley, who said he would do it himself. He and Ronnie carefully folded the smart clothes Mackenzie left in the wardrobe and put them into his suitcase. They also retrieved his phone from the sideboard. The drive back took 3 hours, and the limousine arrived at Forest Lodge slightly before midnight. Woods was given Carruthers' room. Ursula was up and waiting for them with some tea and homemade cookies. She sensed the atmosphere. Before they went to bed, she pulled Ronnie to one side. "Are you okay, dear?" she asked. Ronnie shook her head. "Not really. I can't help but feel we've ruined his life." Ursula shook her head. "I understand from Mr. Oakley he revealed some very distressing facts about his childhood, something that Carruthers should have prevented." Ronnie shrugged. "I already knew. But yes, he did. I thought I'd helped him. I thought he was getting happier. I feel like I've let him down." "Look at me," said Ursula, pursing her lips. "People have let him down. Horrendously. But it was not you, and it was not me. You can't even blame Mr. Oakley." "Can't I?" "No, dear, you can't. Mackenzie's life had fallen apart well before Mr. Oakley joined us. If anything, he made the boy's life easier. Thanks to Mr. Oakley, Mackenzie had a roof over his head, which Arbor Associates pays for, and that will never change." "How do you know?" asked Ronnie. "Because I won't accept anything less, and I know you won't either. Mr. Oakley is a reasonable man." Ronnie sat back down in the snug. "Mackenzie believes that we stand no chance of presenting this catastrophe. He's gone home to die with his family." "Of course we have a chance," said Ursula. She looked at her watch. "It's 17 minutes to midnight now, dear. In 17 minutes the trees will make sure that no plant life creates any oxygen anywhere on the planet. People will notice. I believe it will convince even the most cynical minister." "With everything else I'd forgotten that was tonight," said Ronnie. She looked at her watch, and seconds ticked by. "I'm going to bed." "One more thing, Ronnie, dear," said Ursula. "I was going to go home for a while, but I think with all of this I should stay." "Yes," declared Ronnie quickly. "I don't need any more changes, not now." "Agreed. Good night, dear. Do try and get some sleep." Ronnie ran up to her room and had a quick shower before pulling on her pyjamas. She activated the huge faux log fire next to her bed and watched the patterns from the flames dancing on her wall. I've already said dancing on a wall, so I'm going to say moving this time. Moving on her wall. A few minutes later, there was a knock on the door. She walked across the atrium and opened one of the doors. Marianne was standing outside. "I'm not going to be able to sleep," they said. Their eyes were red from crying. "Can I use your sofa?" "Don't be silly," said Ronnie. "The bed is massive." "Come on." Ronnie followed Marianne into the bedroom. They looked dejected and their shoulders were drooping. They got to the side of the bed and lifted the duvet. "You sure you don't mind?" "I almost suggested it," said Ronnie. "I should have. Truth be told, I need the company as well tonight. I just didn't want to impose on you." Marianne climbed into the bed, pulled the covers over themselves. "Do you think we let him down?" asked Marianne after a few minutes. Ronnie turned to them. "I've just had the same conversation with Ursula. Carruthers did, but we did not." She could hear Marianne turning to face away from her bed, her breathing rapid. "Hey," Ronnie said. She pulled the covers over herself and cuddled up to Marianne. "You did everything you could for him." "I should have kept my hands to myself," they sniffed. "It's partly my fault." No, it isn't. I miss him terribly. But as for blame, I take none. I am not responsible for what happened, and neither are you." They sat in silence. Ronnie was aware that her phone suddenly buzzed. "What was that?" asked Marianne. "It's midnight," said Ronnie softly. "The trees have just stopped the production of oxygen. Planet Earth is about to be shown what Yggdrasil can do." Wow, I'm quite proud of that. I really am. And I hardly need to change anything, which is great. Oh, bit emotion after reading that. Because that's a huge turning point for the story. And yeah. Right, let's run it through Grammarly. And then I think that's probably me done for the night. But I've only got 4 chapters left to sign off in 3 days. So, splendid is all I can say to that. Right, let me just export this as a Word file. And drag it into Grammarly. See what it gives me as an overall score before I do anything. 89, that's not a bad start, is it? Right then. Well, of course I would. Oh, good grief. Oh, anyway. If we fail, comma. Even exceeded the world. Red-handed glass of champagne. To everyone, yeah, that's better. There was a comfortable-looking double sofa in each of the suites, which Marion asked if they could use instead. Ronnie and agreed immediately. Is probably better there. No, I'm happy with that as it is. Gradually, initially. Can you remove the literally actually? That's removed. Beginning to use a curtain doublet. His white shirt. Good. If I scared you, I'm desperately sorry. Cool. Right. Let's download the edited version. Let's drag that, download it to my desktop, minimize that, open that. Let's make sure I put it in the right place, because I did some mistakes earlier where I accidentally overrode the wrong chapter. Now luckily I noticed, and the chapters were still in my trash on my computer, so I didn't lose anything. But right. Wow. Okay, let me just go there. Right, I think that's enough for me for today. That's 5 chapters signed off. I'm actually going to need to buy some new printer paper quite soon because I'm running out, but I've only got 4 to do by the end of Sunday. I'll probably be able to finish it tomorrow or Saturday. And then I'm going to start work on chapter 21, which, as I said, is literally the halfway point in terms of chapters. Let me just get the word count for that chapter. 9525, and let's just see what that is. Yeah, 9525, that is a slight increase on the original version chapter by about 300 words. Let me just drag that into the other folder. Oh, why does it do that bloody thing? Sorry, talking to myself. So yeah, that's 17 units of book edited. Got to be able to produce a copy, a paperback copy. Not a paperback, this is too big, it'll have to be in a hardback. And I'm going to produce it either on Lulu, just to see what it looks like, or Amazon KDP. Probably Lulu, because it won't be covered in the not for sale nonsense. Well, it's not nonsense, but either way. So, yeah, so that's nearly 2 hours, but that's those last 2 chapters I wanted to do today signed off. And then tomorrow, well, basically, by the time I get to chapter 20, we've introduced my next, probably the last main character. So we've just met Derek Cockrell Wright, the minister, and he's been in it, basically in chapters I've edited today. We've met him. He's been referenced before then, but this is the first time we've met him. And he becomes definitely a quite high-level secondary character throughout the story. And I don't think there's any other... Are there any other major characters to be... Yeah, so Adrian Vickers is introduced in chapter 20, which I'm going to look at tomorrow or the day after. And then, well, I suppose there's the bad guys who kidnapped Danny and all the people. There's a few more. Yeah, there's a few more characters actually to come, like Sayers and I can't remember what my bad guys are called. Anyway, I don't know why I'm waffling, because that's me done. I'm going to end the session now. Only a couple of people watching, and I know I'm one of them, so probably one person watching. So I'm not going to worry about raiding out, which if I've got more people, I would. I'm done for the day. Cheers, guys. I'll be back at some point tomorrow. Thank you. Bye-bye.